So the big question is this: how these entrepreneurs who started from scratch and had no idea how to sell or market their products or services online and then later on made over 6 figures, 7 figures or even 8 figures became best in their niches and found their dream customers to sell. My name is RJ Ahmed and find this all out in our Interviews with Entrepreneurs show. I interviewed these entrepreneurs and tried to pick their brain of how they actually did that and how they took their business as well as their life to the next level. This podcast is all about the entrepreneurs who strive so hard to become super awesome in their niches. Welcome to Interviews with Entrepreneurs. Welcome to Interviews with Entrepreneurs show, where we interview entrepreneurs who are super awesome in their niches. And the people who are jumping on live use hashtag live. The people who are jumping on replay use hashtag replay. And today's guest we have is Lee Dumas. And if you're in this like internet marketing space, and if you're following like a lot of other entrepreneurs like Russell Brunson and other people as well, or you're probably under the rock, that's the only way you're not gonna know about who Lee Dumas is. Lee Dumas is actually the founder and the host of award-winning podcast Entrepreneurs on Fire, with over 100 million listeners, over 3,000 plus episodes, and a million listeners every month. He recently launched his new book, Common Path to Uncommon Success, which is kind of a new modern Think and Grow Rich book. So let's welcome Lee Dumas.
RJ, thank you for that wonderful welcome. I'm excited to chat with you today.
I'm absolutely excited as well. And I can see a lot of people out there who are jumping on. Thank you so much for jumping on, guys. I want to talk about a lot of things in the time period itself. The very first thing I want to ask, like, why you actually chose shows and why you actually chose to do daily interview shows. Like, why those things happened.
So back in 2012, I found that the best way that I was consuming content that was valuable to me was through podcasts. I just loved the medium. And then when I actually identified the shows I was getting the most value from, it was from shows that were interviewing entrepreneurs. So great name, RJ. Yeah. And I said to myself, okay, well, let's kind of think about this here for a second. Like, if I am getting some value from listening to interviews with entrepreneurs, what if I actually jumped on the microphone and interviewed entrepreneurs and had that one-on-one conversation? But I can't just be like every other show that's out there that's just interviewing entrepreneurs. What would make my show different, special, unique, stand out? And one thing that nobody was doing was a daily show. Everybody was doing a once a week podcast. I said, what if I did 7 days a week? What if I just went all in and became the daily podcast, interviewing the world's most successful entrepreneurs? Well, I knew it would do a number of things. Number one, it would make me different, unique, special. Number two, and really as importantly, it would allow me to actually become good at my craft, because I wasn't a good podcast host. I didn't know what I was doing. But doing a daily show would allow me to put in the reps to become good at communication, at diction, at tonality, at just presenting, at facilitating conversations, at asking the right questions. Would allow me to become much better, much faster by doing it 7 days a week.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. So I heard your podcast, like, I guess it was like few weeks or few months back out there. And I saw the way you talked about, hey, you have to narrow down in a way where you're the best, you're the worst, and you're your only competition. So why you see people out there just trying to go like super generic and they just don't niche down, or they're kind of like afraid of doing that? Like, why you think so people just don't narrow down in a way? They would kind of like go for a blue ocean where they are their only competition rather than going on the saturated side.
People don't niche down because they're scared, and they're scared about the wrong thing. They're scared that they're not going to have enough potential customers or clients or audience in this small niche. So instead, they stay broad, they stay vague, and the exact opposite happens. They just get squashed by the big competition out there that's already entrenched, already crushing it, already spending a ton of money on ads, on branding, on everything. And guess what? You can't win against the big boys day one. That's why you don't have people who are just entering elementary school in the NBA because they're not there yet. You've got to start in your niche, get your initial momentum, your initial traction. You need to say, okay, this is my big idea. But within that, this is an underserved part of that big idea. This is a niche that's not being filled, and you fill that. That's where your focus needs to be, because that's going to allow you to get the hardest thing there is to achieve in all of business: traction, momentum. You can't get that going broad and wide and vague. You can only get that going niche and narrow and specific.
Yeah, 100%. Like riches in the niches. Yeah. So, like, when when the very first time I actually got interacted in your world and started to listening to your podcast and like started to got into your world, like I saw something like really unique, which was actually sharing the income reports, which was fascinating for me. And I was like, wow, like I haven't saw someone out there actually do it like that way, like talking about the wins and like expenses and like how it's happening, like how you actually thought about, okay, like I can be like that. There's transparency at its finest, like I must say, like period. Like how you thought about of actually doing it and then like sharing it, and you're doing it for quite a long time right now, so like how that idea came up.
We just published our 95th monthly income report. So for
Wow.
95 months in a row, we have published a monthly income report. And we do it because we have one focus and one goal at Entrepreneurs on Fire. How can we be of value to our audience? How can we be of value? How can we be of service? And if opening up the kimono and showing our audience how we're struggling and how we're failing, but also how we're winning and succeeding, what we're making money on, what we're losing money on, what we're spending money on, all of these different things, that can help, because success leaves clues. And so you can look at
Yeah.
the income reports and you can see the success that we're having. $280,000 just last month. Those are clues. Those are clues that you can look and identify as you're going forward to whatever it is that you're doing. And you can say, that might work for me. Or, wow, thank God John shared why that's not working for him, because I was about to try that and now I see why that won't work. So we love when people can emulate our successes, but just as importantly, avoid our failures.
Yeah, as I said, this is absolutely the transparency at the finest. Because when I saw that over there, I was like, no one do that like in that way. Like it is like crazy, which is awesome. So during that time, obviously, later on, when you launched your book, Common Path to Uncommon Success. And guys, like I'm gonna post up the link also in the description and also in the show notes. Go check that out. We're also gonna talk about it. But during that particular launch of the book, you were in a lot of podcasts, on other people's platform. Like what you see is the number one mistake those podcasters or like show hosts make when they are like doing the show itself. What do you think about it?
They just ask the exact same questions that everybody else asks. And then they just make the exact same shows that everybody else makes. You need a
Hmm.
special, unique, different set of questions. You need to go in and find an interview flow, an angle that's not being tackled. Because what's going to happen is in a month or 2 months, that podcast host is going to reach out to me and be like, hey, the show's live. Can you share it? I'm going to be like, I can't share it because you asked me the exact same questions that everybody else asked me, which I've already shared 10 times before. I can share something that's different, that's new, that's unique, so that something that my audience hasn't heard before. That makes sense. So that's the biggest mistake that hosts make, is they just ask the exact same questions.
Yeah, repetitive questions are like one of those things, like 100%. There are a lot of people out there, that's the same questions, which is crazy. Like, love it. So, like, walk us through the book that you recently launched, Common Pattern, Common Success, what it's all about. And yeah, like, walk us through a bit of it.
So the book is a culmination of 3,000 interviews with the world's most successful
Wow.
entrepreneurs. It's a culmination of 10 years of me interviewing the world's most successful businessmen and women, and taking that knowledge that I learned and putting it into a 17-step roadmap to financial freedom and fulfillment. And that book is called The Common Path to Uncommon Success. So if you want to follow a very common path to your version of uncommon success, if you want to follow the 17-step roadmap to financial freedom and fulfillment, visit uncommonsuccessbook.com. You can learn more.
Awesome. I'm gonna post up, guys, the link in the description and in the show notes down below. You can go in and check that out. So, like John, like tell us about, for example, you have done over 3,000 interviews. That's a lot of interviews. Again, congratulations for that. So, like, how you were be able to be so consistent with it? Like, obviously, in the initial start when you started out, it was probably you or like someone else with you out there who's like trying to do it consistently with you. Later on, obviously, you're gonna have a team of like putting it out, resharing it, in every single platform. But in the initial start, how you were so consistent? Because as you said, people do weekly shows. For me, I also do weekly shows as well. But like how you did daily without getting that burnout of publishing and doing show itself.
Because I love it. I love having conversations with inspiring people. So I never got burned out because I always had fun doing it. And I always enjoyed doing it. And then it just came down to setting a goal, setting an intention, and following through with that. And then coming through with the absolute key systems and automations and processes that it takes to run a daily show. And that did not come overnight. There's a lot of messiness in the building of those processes and systems. But once you get those in place, man, it doesn't become easy, but it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, 100%. And I really admire you, John, first of all, for being on the show. But not only that, you're also one of those people out there who actually inspired me a lot in order for me to do the show itself. Even though I do weekly shows, it's probably my 66th episode. And I'm just following you and other people out there, like doing consistently, getting awesome people like you on the show itself. Well, thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
So, like, I want to like to truly respect your time and everything out there. Just to stay with it. I want to ask you like one last thing. Like, you like pass through the decade itself. What is the next thing for you? Like, what's the next thing you're actually focusing on at the moment?
Health and wellness, brother, because you can have all the success in the world, all the money in the world, all the fame and fortune. But if you don't have your health, you truly have nothing. And I love that quote, which is, the healthy man wants a million things. The unhealthy man wants one thing.
Yeah.
Health. That's it. The health. So right now I'm actually on day 2 of a 10-day water only fast. And that's going to be my second time doing this. And that's my focus for the next, 5-10 years. I've got my own organic garden out back. I'm growing my own vegetables and greens, and I'm growing wheatgrass and doing some other fermentation and sprouting. And it's just been quite an experience.
Awesome. So I want to ask you one last thing before we round the show up is like how your experience is. I know you're living in Puerto Rico out there. Like how's your experience is living over there? Because I heard that at the moment when you shifted in the first place, there were like old people out there, and later on people started to follow you as well and started to move on to Puerto Rico as well. Like how it's different from other kind of like, I'm not in US itself, so like how it's different in your experience from kind of like other states and everything out there in US.
I like being a trailblazer. When I came out here, there weren't that many people in my age demographic, but
Yeah.
I kind of led the way, showed people that if they want to keep the money they make, they can move to Puerto Rico and live on the ocean in the Caribbean, enjoy amazing weather. And we've been here 5 years now.
That's awesome. So where people can find about you and everything you have.
uncommonsuccessbook.com is where you can find more information about the book. Entrepreneurs on Fire is my podcast right here. And eofire.com is my headquarters.
Awesome. So guys, like I'm going to post up all of the links, all of the resources in the comment section and in the show notes down below. Well, thank you so much, John, for being on the show. Any last thing you want to say before we round the show up?
Thanks for having me, RJ.
Truly appreciate it. So yeah, guys, like this is Ed for now. Thank you so much, and definitely going to see you guys in the next episode.